this video, I'm going to go over the top 5 weapons that you guys need to have leveled up going into Warzone 2. These weapons are for casual and experienced gamers, and a lot of these builds are good for all ranges. Coming in at the number 5 spot is going to be the RAAL LMG. The player type that this weapon fits best is going to be the support players, and I could really see this working for highly aggressive players, but you're going to have to be a skilled aggressive player to make it work just because of how heavy and bulky the gun is. The pros attached to this weapon is that it has a large magazine with around 100 round mag. It has an extremely fast TTK, all while having super manageable and easy to control recoil, especially over range where this thing is going to shine. The one major flaw and the biggest con is that it's going to be a heavy, slower weapon, but even with that being said, it's still not that bad, especially where Warzone 2 is kind of lending itself to being one of those slower, more tactical BRs. So this, I think, will definitely fit right in the meta conversation, which is why this weapon got the number 5 spot. This is the RAAL LMG build. For the underbarrel, I have the SA side grip. For the muzzle, the BVM 338 muzzle. For the laser, I'm using the FSS OLV laser. For the optic, I have the Schlager 4X, and then for the stock, I'm using the Demo H40. Getting into the weapon tuning, the reason we're using this grip is for the recoil stabilization. So we're going to go ahead and when we're tuning it, we're going to turn that all the way up. We didn't do any tuning on the aiming idle stability or the aim walk speed just because we don't want to throw anything out of whack too much. Getting into the muzzle with the BVM 338, again, we're tuning this for recoil stabilization and gun kick control. This muzzle will help a ton with that. And getting into the sight, we got the Schlager 4X. We have this tuned all the way for the aim down sight speed. So we want to have it tuned at -3 for ADS. And then at eye position, you want to put it at -1.5 at the far side of things. And then getting into the stock, we're only doing one tune to this portion, and that's going to be for the aim down sight speed. This weapon truly is incredible and deserves to be on this top 5 list just for the TTK alone. But then when you add the weapon tuning into the mix, it's really not as slow and clunky as everybody makes it out to be. And the ADS is actually really, really good. Coming in at number 4 is actually going to be a secondary, and what I would argue is going to be the best and most well-rounded secondary to use inside of Warzone 2, and that's going to be the Vaznes 9K. This weapon, I would suggest, is going to be great for a sniper support, but also just as a secondary SMG that you could go ahead and run with your ARs. Some of the pros attached to this weapon are going to be the ADS walking speed. It makes it great for clearing buildings because you can move around so very quickly, which helps keep your footsteps really, really quiet. The gun has virtually no recoil. It has a little bit of visual bounce, but for the most part, this thing is an absolute laser beam, which makes it great, again, for being that sniper support. And then the last pro is going to be that the ADS speed is very, very snappy, very, very quick, which makes it super well-rounded for pretty much all situations. Really, the only con that there is that it's an SMG, so the damage range isn't the greatest. But again, if you're using this as an SMG as it's intended, then I don't really see any cons to this weapon. Getting into the build, I have the 45 round magazine, the Demo rear grip, the Spetsnaz S10 stock, the Kaz-1 381mm barrel, and then for the muzzle, I'm using the Spiral V3.5 flash hider. All of these are tuned, and we're going to go ahead and get into that right now. Starting up front with the muzzle, we have the Spiral V3.5 flash hider. Getting into the tuning, we have this tuned completely just to help with recoil. So we're going to tune the recoil smoothness to 1 ounce. And then for the gun kick control, we're going to tune that to 0.4, maxing out both of those categories and giving us the most control over the weapon. Getting into the barrel, we're going to go ahead and tune that up for the recoil steadiness, putting it at 0.5. And then to help with the ADS speed, since the damage range already isn't that great, we're going to go ahead and tune the ADS speed to 0.4, just to make it a little bit more snappy. For the stock tuning, we are tuning this again for the aim down sight speed. So we're setting that to -4. And then we're going to go ahead and tune up the aim walking speed as well, putting that to -2.4. And then the last thing that we ended up tuning on this weapon is going to be the Demo X2 grip. For this attachment, we tuned the ADS speed to -1. And then for the other tune, we did the sprint to fire speed, and we tuned that to -0.45. Coming in at number 3 is going to be one of my favorites and a definite top meta contender, and that is going to be the Scar or the TAC 56. This is one of my favorite weapons in multiplayer, and I really do seeing this being very dominant in Warzone, specifically with the build I'm going to share with you guys. This TAC 56 build is going to be geared for a long range primary, kind of a do-it-all weapon. It's going to be more for the casual side of players because it's going to be good for range and good for aggressive players, but it also has very, very little recoil, making it great for pretty much players of all skill level. With it having slightly less recoil, it does have slightly less damage than our number 1 weapon that we're going to go over in a minute. Some of the pros attached to the weapon, like we said earlier, it has very, very low recoil, super manageable, and great for players of all skill levels. The build does have a dual zoom. The dual zoom will be making a comeback with Warzone 2. And then the last and one of the most overlooked pros of this weapon is that it has phenomenal mobility. One of the cons that we touched on a little bit earlier is just the damage drop off. It doesn't have a bad TTK, but compared to the #1 weapon, it is just slightly slower. But overall, I would argue this might be even more well-rounded than the #1 weapon. All right, so getting into the build, starting off at the front, we have the muzzle. It's the RF Crown 50. For the barrel, the 14.5-inch Tundra Pro barrel. For the optic, this is kind of the secret sauce. This is going to be the Luca Bandera scope. This is a dual zoom optic. You can go ahead and see it's a 3.7 magnification at the low zoom option, and then an 8 zoom magnification at the high zoom option. And that 3.7 seems to be the sweet spot for having very little to no recoil on most of the weapons. And then for the stock, we have the Tactic Brute stock, and then obviously the 60 round magazine. And I promise you, this weapon virtually has no recoil. All right, getting right into the tuning though. For the muzzle, I have it tuned all the way up for recoil stabilization at 0.8. And then for the gun kick control, I have it tuned all the way up as well at 0.35. For the barrel, we are going to be, once again, trying to help with that recoil. So for recoil steadiness, we're going to go ahead and put that at 0.5. And then to get that little extra damage range, we're going to tune that up to 0.4 on the damage range side of things. For the scope, the secret sauce, the dual zoom, we're going to go ahead and want to try to make that ADS as fast as possible. So tuning that up to the -3 is what you're going to want to do. And then for the eye position, like we do on all our scope tunings, we're going to go ahead and put that to far and tune that to -1.2. For the stock, this again is going to be another common theme across most of my AR builds, is going to be the tuning for the ADS and putting that at -4, and then going for the aim walking speed, which is going to be at -2.4. Just because ARs, specifically on the new Warzone map, you're going to be ADS a lot more often than you were in Warzone 1. So ADS walking and being able to do that quickly and throw shoulders around corners is going to be very beneficial. Coming in at #2 is going to be the MCPR 300 sniper. This is what I think the sniper meta will be inside of Warzone 2. And I think snipers are going to be a very dominant force. I'm not sure if marksman rifles are going to be all that great or worth using, but I do think that this sniper is going to dominate. And I think if you use it with the Vaznez that we went over earlier, I think it'd make a phenomenal class setup. This weapon is great for players that like to sit back a little bit. You know, it's obviously a sniper, but the build in particular that I'm rocking here, and I'm going to show you guys, is an aggressive sniper build that will one-shot headshot from pretty much any range. It is tuned to balance ADS and aim stability, making it very, very lethal and almost like a marksman rifle. So getting into the attachments, I have the 5-round magazine. For the ammunition, I'm using the 300 mag high velocity. This is a key attachment to have on your snipers because it allows them to be a little bit more hit scan. Getting into the muzzle, we have the Nil Sound 90. For the barrel, the 22-inch OMX 456. And then for this stock, we have the Cronin Lion stock. Getting into the weapon tuning, we're going to start at the muzzle. We're going to be tuning this for ADS speed, putting it down to -1.4. And then, like I said earlier, the aim idle stability, putting it to -1. Then for the barrel, we're actually going to tune this again for ADS speed, putting it to -0.4. On the stock, we are tuning the aim down sight speed to -4 and the aiming idle stability to +2.4. And then this is where the real secret sauce comes in. When you're tuning the ammunition, that high velocity magazine, you can actually tune up the damage range and put that to 0.7. And then you can also tune up the bullet velocity, putting that to 9, making this thing absolutely lethal. All right, coming in at the #1 spot, kind of the king of the weapons, what I think is going to be the best of the best, and pretty much what all of the advanced players are going to end up running eventually. It's going to be the M4, but with a very special build specifically made for Warzone 2 and the aggressive player. Some of the pros for this weapon, again, is going to be that dual zoom making a comeback, making it super viable for close ranges, but also for distance. This weapon has great mobility, one of the best for the ARs. And then arguably the greatest pro about this weapon is the headshot multiplier is absolutely insane. And when we're talking about recoil and headshots, one of the cons about this weapon is it does have slightly higher recoil, but while that is a con, if you aim for the mid chest in most engagements, you're going to end up just naturally mixing a headshot or two in there, and it's going to make the TTK come down drastically, making it just that much better. All right, so getting into the build, you see it on the screen. It seems a little wacky, seems a little wonky. I promise you, it is very, very good. Starting at the muzzle, we have the RF Crown 50. Then for the barrel, the High Tower 20-inch barrel. For the optic, I have the Luca Bandera scope. Again, the secret sauce, the dual zoom, making a comeback. For the magazine, we're rocking the 60 round. And then for the underbarrel, we have the Agent Grip. Obviously, we have all of the attachments tuned that can be tuned, so let's get right into those. Starting up front at the muzzle, for recoil stabilization, we're doing plus 0.8. You gotta have the plus 0.8. And then for the gun kick control, we have the 0.35. This is gonna help the most with the recoil, so make sure you guys, when you're doing the tuning, the RF crown, and make sure you tune it exactly like that. For the High Tower barrel, we have the recoil steadiness tuned to plus 0.5 and that damage range tuned to plus 0.4, making it just a little bit better over range. Again, I do think this is better than the SCAR over distance, and I think the TTK is faster. Getting into the scope tuning, we have the ADS tuned to -3. Obviously, you want to have the ADS as fast as possible, and then the eye position, like we do for all our scopes, we're going to want to have that tuned for far at -1.2. And then the last and final attachment is going to be the Agent Grip. This weapon attachment, if you read the pros, it says aiming, idle stability, and plus hipfire accuracy. It doesn't say anything about recoil control or anything like that, and which makes it a great secret attachment. And because when you go into the tuning, you can tune it for recoil stabilization. With all of the other recoil tuned attachments, makes it an absolute beam. So for the grip, the only kind of tuning you're going to need to do is put the recoil stabilization up to plus 0.8, and then you guys got yourself an absolute beam. Anyway, guys, that's the top 5 weapon setups I recommend going into Warzone 2. If you guys gained any value from this, screenshotted a setup, or plan on trying any of these out, please consider subscribing to the channel so that way you don't miss any future uploads, because I have a lot more tips, tricks, and guide videos coming out for Warzone 2 in the near future. If we could hit 1K likes, that'd be absolutely phenomenal. And as always, guys, have a fantastic rest of your day.